8th, 2015 to order, and we'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call shows all council is present, as well as department heads. Let's look at the meetings of May, the approval of the minutes of May 26.
I move the minutes.
Actually, I would like to comment on one, on page 5, at the bottom. It's minor, but it's just, I'd said that I had some people from different townships helping me. I know Lyon Township folks did help, but actually I had stated Green Oak and Salem Township.
I move the minutes as amended. Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the bills.
I have two. The first page, about 5/8 of the way down, the Planning Commission meeting minutes, $165. I'm hoping that's a number of meetings.
Actually, no, that is a contract that was negotiated for single minutes. That's in line with what we pay for minutes to other employees to do minutes for the other organizations.
Well, how does it that it went from $75 for the last 25 years to $165?
We could not find anyone to do the minutes, and the Planning Commission was demanding that we have professional minutes.
Okay, on page 4 of the approval list, utilities, instrumentation, wastewater treatment plant, generator, switchgear for $7,000. Was that something that came up unexpectedly?
No, it was a budgeted for item this year, and it's one of those jobs that DTE came in, turned the power off. We lived for 2 days with no power off, standby generator, and they went through the switchgear, rebuilt it. We're good for the next 10 years.
Perfect. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Yep. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but if it went down and it didn't switch over, it'd be worse.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, I just want to come back to the Planning Commission minutes at $175. It's my understanding that there were some issues with the Planning Commission minutes being taken accurately, and so now that we're paying over double what we were paying, is that now resolved going forward?
I believe so, yes. This is, the person that's doing these minutes also do the Planning Commission minutes for Lyon Township and for 2 other organizations, and the Planning Commission are very happy with the person that was chosen.
Because I know, did we check with the person who does the minutes for the ZBA? Because I know.
Yes, she was not interested in doing them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mike.
Page 2. Looks like check number 66659, Michigan Municipal League, a help wanted ad that costs $4,758.
That's got to be a mistake.
Correct.
Our ad didn't cost near that much. That must be a typo or something. I could check with Lori in the morning.
Okay. That's a pretty expensive help wanted
Yeah,
ad.
you,
I
Yeah.
had that on my list as well.
And then on the same page, City of Novi Treasurer CPA graduation dinner.
That would be the police department, Citizens Police Academy.
Okay, that's what okay. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Aaron, anything else?
No, I just had the one that Mike had.
Any other questions?
Move the bills.
I'll support.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the agenda, any additions or deletions?
I don't have any changes.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll support that.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. At this time, anybody wishes to speak on any item that's not listed on our agenda, they can come up to this microphone here, state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Mika Giles, and I live at 1089 Vassar in South Lyon. I'm here because I would like to propose an amendment to the current city ordinance that states, "No person shall keep or house any animal or domestic fowl within the city except dogs, cats, birds, fowl, or animals commonly classified as pets." I am proposing an amendment that would allow residents within the city limits to keep backyard hens. So why should South Lyon allow residents within the city limits to keep backyard hens? There are actually a lot of reasons. Chickens promote self-sustainability and local economies. Urban chickens are quieter than the average barking dog, and certainly quieter than the fireworks that are set off every night all summer long. Chickens create virtually no waste because their bedding and droppings are great garden compost. Chickens are great composters. They eat kitchen scraps and spent garden plants. Chickens scratch around in the grass for insects to eat as well. Properly maintained chicken coops do not smell. Children whose families keep chickens learn affection and responsibility by helping to care for the chickens. Children whose families keep chickens will develop a greater awareness for where our food actually comes from. This in itself is very important. As a preschool teacher, I have noticed that children are becoming less and less aware of where food comes from. Even my own daughter did not know that the chicken meat we eat comes from an actual chicken, even though we have talked about it before. Backyard chickens create a healthier, local food option. You know where your eggs are coming from, how the chickens who laid them have been cared for, and what those chickens have been fed, because you're caring for them yourself. Many other cities near South Lyon allow hens to be kept within the city limits, including Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Northville, Chelsea, and Fenton. Among other cities in Michigan that allow backyard hens are Grand Rapids, East Lansing, and Traverse City. For the last week or so, I have been using social media, as well as a petition on change.org, to get an idea of how much support there would be for my proposed amendment to allow residents within the city limits to keep backyard hens. The positive response has been incredible. The petition itself has almost 200 signatures, most from South Lyon, but also from all over the country. I have a printed copy of the petition for the council to keep if you would like it. Although there has been a lot of support for this amendment, for many of the reasons I listed previously, there have been a few concerns raised. Among the concerns are noise, smell, property values, disease, and the big one really was, what if the hens are not properly cared for? So let me address these issues. There's lots of information online regarding these issues, but the one I chose to bring tonight was from Wikipedia. So in regards to the noise, I'm just quoting directly from there. In some areas, roosters are banned and only hens are allowed, which is what I'm proposing, and in limited numbers to prevent problems with noise. Hens are relatively quiet as compared to pet dogs, though hens often vocalize after an egg is laid for a few minutes. The noise level during this squawking period has been measured at around 63 decibels, or about the level of two people talking. Other than post-laying squawking, normal hen sounds are not audible at 25 feet. There's also been some health issues brought up, such as the bird flu and salmonella, as well as the avian flu. Bird flu and salmonella, as far as I know, and from what is on here, can be controlled with just sanitation, washing hands, and things like that. As far as I've been able to find, and according to here, that the avian flu is not present in the United States, so it's not really a concern for us. As far as odor concerns can be mitigated somewhat by limiting the number of chickens that a household can own. Unlike large commercial operations, where thousands of chickens are kept in close quarters and thus build up enough ammonia to create a powerful odor, small backyard operations produce proportionately less odor. The average chicken eliminates waste on average, now this is kind of gross, but every 15 to 20 minutes. A coop of 9 chickens will produce approximately 700 defecations per day. So the other issue that had been brought up was property values, and Wikipedia, as well as I also contacted a realtor that I know, but on Wikipedia it says, one of the arguments against allowing backyard hens is that chickens kept within city limits will cause a reduction in property values. There are numerous cities across the country that allow backyard hens. Real estate figures show that property values have been unaffected by the passing of ordinances related to the keeping of urban hens. And then the realtor that I contacted, she said, if you have a nice setup for chickens, then no. If they are just running the yard and no one is cleaning up, then maybe yes. In fact, there are many buyers that would find that to be a bonus. Others would not like it at all. If the home is in the country, it's a no-brainer. If it's in town, then it depends on the individual buyer. Biggest concern I have seen in a town is the noise factor of a rooster. To answer your question, I would say no. It would not lower the value, or an appraiser would never say there were chickens, so I am taking the value down. So one of the other concerns was, what if a resident who keeps hens does not properly care for them? Well, this is an issue that does not just pertain to hens. It pertains to dogs, cats, and any other family pet. Some people should have pets and some people should not. But pets are not banned because there are people who should not have them. The same thing goes for chickens. Some people should have them and some people should not. Banning them because of the people who should not is not any more logical than banning cats, dogs, or hamsters. As with owning pets, reasonable regulations should be in place to help ensure proper care is being given to hens that are kept within the city limits. I have researched regulations in many of the cities that allow backyard chickens in Michigan. Regulations in these cities include: roosters are generally prohibited in all the cities that I researched. The number of hens is limited. Lot size is sometimes regulated. Slaughter of chickens is prohibited in all cities that I researched. Chicken coops and enclosures are required. Feed storage that keeps out rodents is required. Distance from lot line and neighboring homes is regulated. Chickens must be kept in the backyard, and permits are required. By far the funniest regulation I saw was one prohibiting the coloring or dyeing of chickens and the sale of such colored and dyed chickens. Because so many other cities in Michigan and across the country have already made the transition to allowing backyard chickens, that makes the process that much easier for South Lyon. We can use what these other cities have already done to guide us in our own decision making. So let's join the urban farming revolution and make backyard chickens a reality in South Lyon. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody in the council has any comments, we do it during council comments at the end of the meeting, okay? Anybody else wish to speak on anything? Okay, we can move on to old business, which we do not have any. New business, consider the city attorney a retainer agreement, which was presented to the council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Tim.
I've provided council with a cover letter and the current contract, which will expire on June 30th, and a proposed revised contract for a renewal period of 3 years. The one clarification would be that personnel and employment matters would be out of retainer services. And then the only other change would be a change in the compensation portion or fee portion of the agreement. I've provided council with 3 different options. I don't know if you want a run through on those various options. One would be a flat hourly rate. One would be a flat retainer fee. And one would be a hybrid retainer with a certain number of hours allocated with an hourly rate for hours worked over that set number of hours for the retainer. I provided backup data regarding the number of hours billed for general city attorney prosecutions, and I did not get a full update, but the labor and was provided through, I believe, like April or maybe January. I'm sorry. Actually, just through the end of 14. So what I'm looking for is a renewed contract for a 3-year period. I'd like the compensation factor to be fair to both parties involved. As you can see from the data, my position is it's been unfair to us and my firm simply because of the number of hours worked. And we've lived by that contract, and we're simply looking for a fair increase in the compensation. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes, I have a question, and Tim, it's funny you say fair, because I want to kind of take everybody through these numbers, because that's what I do. I like looking at numbers, extrapolating them, seeing where we're at and where we're going. So if I could ask you a question first, and that is, do you know how much of a percentage increase you're asking approximately from your current retainer to your new retainer?
It would depend on the option chosen, but it's a significant increase.
Okay, so it depends. Well, I can kind of summarize for everybody, depending on which option we choose, either option 1, 2, or 3. Either option, it's about a 100% increase. I'll repeat that again, 100%. Basically going from $75,000 a year up to $150,000 a year. Now, we can sit here and talk about how I got to those numbers. I'd be willing to review those with everybody. But the bottom line is, okay, before you say I'm wrong, option number 1 is pretty straightforward, is 147. Option number 2 is I came up to 150,480, and option number 3 is 148,680.
How'd you get 148 on that?
On the third one?
Yeah.
So what I did was,
9,000 times
Yep.
12 is 98.
I will take you through that exactly.
108.
9,000 times 12 is 108,000.
Okay.
That's for 75 hours, okay,
Right.
only. So, based off of Tim's estimate, he's saying consistently that on average we'd use 88 hours, which is provided in the attachment that they had here. So, we need to consider 88 hours, not 75, just for this figure, okay? So if we do 75, all right, 88 minus 75 is 13 hours. 13 hours times 150 is 23,400, but it gets better. Not better, but actually worse for us.
You know, Joe, instead of criticizing the numbers, do you have some kind of alternative number 4 that you'd like to throw out there?
Yeah, I'd like to keep it at $75,000. That's where I'd like to keep it. I mean, I think for an attorney, that's pretty fair. I mean, so if I could continue. So in addition to that 23,400, you also have to factor in that we're not using 88 hours on average. That 88 hours comes back from since our attorney started in 2013. Since Lynn's taken office, we're actually at 97.6 hours. So either way, we're going to be going over that 88 hours significantly. So that only means an increase over 150,000. So to answer your question, Mike, 75,000. That's where I'm good with. And it says right here in the contract, just so everybody knows that I'm not being a difficult or hard guy. It says right here, if we're not willing to, if no agreement on a new retainer can be reached, we will continue to provide service on an interim basis. This is their words, not my words. So if that's what it's going to be, and we're getting hit with a 100% increase, I would be okay with sending this out for an RFP and shopping around. I think that's the
So we're going to be in the same situation we were in 3 years ago, where we're going to have to start all over again, find a new city attorney, rather than try to work with this firm to see what kind of deal we can cut. I mean, these were just the 3 options they presented to us. Is there an opportunity for us to sit down with the firm and say, okay, these are where we're at, and see if we can work on numbers? Are you saying just screw it, let's go out with an RFP and start all over again?
Well, just to clarify for the public, so they know,
The
this
camera's
was...
right there, Joe,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I guess the public's watching
Yeah,
this, so.
you don't have to attack me, that's okay. But
Okay.
this proposal, these proposals were put before us, what was it, 6 months ago? Or, I don't know exactly, 5 months ago? Significant time, enough time to negotiate, and I'm still seeing the same proposals in front of us.
Well-
I'm not saying let's dump our city attorney, I'm saying,
Joe, we had the city attorney, or the city manager was out for a period of time. We had some other issues going on, and we never brought this back to the table. So he presented it, we just sat on it, and now you're gonna criticize him for now bringing it up today?
no, you're putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm just trying to ask you what you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, what is it that you're saying then? if
Yeah,
that's
so
not
what I'm
it?
saying is, okay, I can compromise and say, well, maybe we should work with the attorney on some better prices, but I'd like to see a revised, as I've said 5 months ago, I'd like to see a revised proposal. And I don't think it's our responsibility as council to come forward and bring our own issues up. It's for the city manager to bring to us, and us go from there. And like I said, this is the same figures we've had 5 months ago.
But
You
see,
do recognize she's been gone for an awful lot of the time.
That's fine, but
Well,
again, all I'm
it's
saying is,
Just, it's fine, doesn't
Yeah, it doesn't address
really
the
answer
issue.
the concern there. He's not going to end up making new proposals battling against himself. It's incumbent on us to negotiate some kind of a position. So our negotiator was either tied up in the rest of the firestorm
Okay.
going on around here, or she had been out.
all right, well, let me take a step back, okay? Let me explain, so it's very clear, what is being on the table and possible course of action for us today. And that is, select one of the proposed legal service options proposed by Johnson, Rosati, Schultz, and Jopik, or put legal services out for bid. That's exactly what we're talking about
no,
today.
no.
That's what it says right
Read the
here.
last line in the last paragraph, right below those options. We are certainly willing to consider other mutually acceptable arrangements.
That's what
Kind
it
of
says.
an important line.
That is an important
But the
line,
agenda
Joe.
that we're discussing today is what I just read. Now, again, I'm not here to argue with you, to go to battle if you want that. I'm
But I'm
not here
just
to
kind
do
of
that.
curious, what do you want us to do? You're saying you're ready to go out on an RFP, you attack him on his numbers, he threw out a proposal, he's also saying in the same letter that we all have, that, hey, if these proposals don't work out, we're willing to sit down with you, but you're willing to throw that all away and get another attorney. What else
So
do you want to do?
what numbers are you comfortable with? Let me ask you that.
Sure.
Are
I'm
you
not- you
comfortable
know
with
what?
100% increase? I'm not a big spender. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but.
Well, you know what, this is funny, Joe, because if you look back over the last 2 years,
Let's focus on this, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's not get into his
well, no,
issues.
I'm willing to discuss, I'm willing to sit down, I'm willing to even come up with 3 of us to sit down with that firm to try to work on something, a proposal that we could present back to the firm. I mean, there's a lot of positive things we can do here, rather than attack him for bringing a proposal to the table that he brought 5 months ago that nothing's been done with. So, rather than attack him, let's see what we can do to sit down and try to work on some numbers that we might be able to live with. It's as simple as that.
That's
What he's saying is the agreement's up June 30th. Either we have a new agreement with this firm, we work out something with this firm, or they may not want to represent us anymore. That's what it's coming down to. And it's not a laughing matter, Joe.
I'm not laughing. I'm curious what your number is. You didn't answer my question.
My number is, I'm fine with option number 3, but modifying it. I'm willing to sit down with them. I'd rather have a certain number of hours each month under a retainer.
Okay?
And then possibly if we go over that retainer, what I would like to see is a billing statement for the number of hours for that month, which explains why they went over the retainer.
Yeah. And
Is that okay?
no, I have a feeling based off of, or not a feeling, based off of the hours that we've had to date and the calculations I've made, I can email this to anybody.
Right.
We're going to be paying double. I mean, there'll be an excellent checks and balances, but is that really going to
Joe.
work? I'd rather have the contract negotiated up front. In my position, this is what I do, I negotiate. And if somebody's asking for a cost increase, you counter. And the counter is.
Joe, have we countered? Have we countered? In the last 5 months, have we countered? Have we countered with their original proposal? Have we done anything with it? The agreement's up in 2 months. What have we done? What have you asked us to do?
Well, there's no reason to get upset and
I'm
attack me.
not, but
I mean,
you're making a big deal on this, and you're attacking him, but what have we done to counter his proposal?
You are attacking me, sir. I'm not
Okay,
attacking,
Joe.
and this is,
Okay.
if you want to attack me, I can take it.
Just stay
I
in
mean,
focus, please, for
Yeah, I mean,
heaven's sakes. Let's talk
seriously, it's a
about this
proposal.
discussion.
It's not like we're supposed to get all upset about this.
I'm not upset at all. I'm not here to butt heads, Mike. I mean, come on. So,
Now, did you look at the data that was provided for
Yes.
comps?
yes, I do.
Okay, so where in that data did you see somebody that's working for the amount that these guys have been working for us for the last 3 years?
So I think one of the issues is that when we say the dollar per hour, that's because we're factoring how many hours compared to how much what the retainer is. So if the city attorney was not working as much hours, certainly that dollar per hour would go up, as in the cases, I don't have the months, oh, I do, the months in front of me, November and December, I know it from memory, of 2014, the city attorney made a large amount per hour because he was working less hours.
What was he
So-
doing after the firing of the city manager?
Well,
What were you
that's-
doing with the interim? I mean, he was doing a lot of
Those
numbers
2 months
there,
that you're
too.
speaking to were the months that Rod was in here and he went to Arizona.
Right, and certainly, and that's my point. In the most 2 turbulent months, we were in fact had the lowest legal bills. I mean, that's kind of ironic when you think about it. But
No,
No,
there is no irony.
No.
It's because nothing
What's
happened.
happening?
okay.
We have a boatload of problems that need to be addressed, and you think that they're just going to be solved without the assistance of an attorney?
No, I'm not saying that at all. That's putting words in my mouth.
Well, wait a second. Okay, so when the city manager was out of town and we didn't incur an awful lot of legal hours, what got done? Nothing got done. So you're saying, I'm putting words in your mouth. You think that we're going to end up accomplishing things with fewer hours. How is that? Because he's going to suddenly start being very effective with his time where he was wasting time before? I mean, is that essentially what you're thinking is taking place?
I think that we've been using the city attorney quite a bit when, I'm not saying we don't need a city attorney, but maybe
And
it's
you
not
might be
used
right
all the
at
time.
some
Okay.
regards, that
So
we might
maybe it's
have-
not used all the time, so if we reduce those hours when it's not necessarily needed, that dollar per hour will actually increase. So, again, okay, so you asked Mike, what do I want to do? I want to say we don't accept any of these options because me personally, I'm not going to accept a 100% increase on any of these options. And I'd like to see a revised proposal, as I requested 5 months ago.
Well, then let's counter. What's your counter?
He's not going to bid against himself. We're going to have to be the ones that make a pitch on what we'll accept to pay.
Right, so let's put a committee together
I
right
think
now.
I agree with that.
Let's put a committee together to meet with the firm and try to work something out. It's as simple as that.
Well, it sounds like we don't disagree that much. I mean, it sounds like people aren't agreeing with these options, and I guess I made my point then.
No, you didn't make
Yeah,
any point.
I think you missed
We're
the
the ones
point.
making the point. You're sitting there getting all
clear
upset.
We think that there's room, there's wiggle room.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
The
Tim.
objective is to
Tim?
end up getting
Tim would
there,
speak.
so.
Mr. Mayor,
Tim.
it would be, I've listened to the discussion. It would be helpful to know which of the options how council feels about each of the options. Is there one option that makes more sense from council's perspective than others? In other words, is it the straight hourly rate, the straight retainer, or the hybrid concept? At least that would get us all into a position where we're looking at one concept as opposed to all three. And I think Councilman Kivel is correct. One of my concerns was that I didn't have any feedback from council as to what the preference was among any of these options, whether it's strictly an absolute budget dollars, whether it's a monthly retainer amount cap, whether it's the number of hours. All of those would certainly be part of a discussion that I'm willing to have to control hours, cost control. I understand. I take great professional and personal pride in being an attorney for the city of South Lyon. It means a lot to me. If there's a way for me to cut hours, I'm certainly willing to explore that. If there's a way to cut the dollars out of this, I'm willing to explore that. My ultimate goal is really about providing the highest level of service to satisfy the city's needs for legal services and to reach my hourly rate that I'm looking for. And there's a number of ways to skin that cat. I really would find it helpful to get feedback from council on what the real concerns are, and whether that's in an open session or through a group of less than the council or individual meetings, that would be very helpful to me. And I think it would be very helpful to the city as well, because we haven't had that kind of discussion yet. And that's why this was presented to council in the fashion it was. I'm certainly not trying to take advantage of the city. I want to continue to be the city attorney, and I want to do so in a way that's fair to my firm as far as compensation and provides the city with the legal services it needs.
Okay. Harvey has a question.
Thank you. I recall 5 months ago when you presented us with the breakdown of the hourly rate as it was averaging out, and I recognized then that there needed to be an adjustment to that because it was far below what your personal and professional standards are. In response to your question, I appreciated the hybrid option, number 3. And I would be willing to go along with that or some variation of that option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm more in favor of I like the whole idea of the retainer just because you're covered pretty much under any circumstance. I don't know that that's realistic. I think what I was hoping from the time that we had this initial discussion to now, that something would be unearthed as far as what Lynn would be bringing to the city, whether or not we could end up having less hours that would be incurred by our legal services. And if that was going to be the case, then it might end up having solved the problem for us. It's not terribly realistic, I'm imagining, only in that even though you might end up finding some solution to some of the systems that we might have leaned on you a little bit too heavily for, just by the nature of city government, there's always these outlying things that pop up out of nowhere that need to be addressed on a more immediate kind of a basis. So probably the hours would end up being escalated by that kind of activity, even if things had stabilized and we got the hours of typical activity down. There's always going to be something popping up that would throw a projected number out of skew. So probably the hybrid would make more sense. I have to say that I want you to be made whole. I don't want you to be that whole. So I'm hoping that we can find some kind of medium ground that that would be satisfactory to both sides. So.
Ted?
Aaron.
I have a question, Tim. In your cover letter, you said that, hang on, I didn't highlight it. But with an adjustment to a fee arrangement and clarification that personnel and employment matters will be out of retainer. So those are just done at a strictly hourly rate?
Yeah, under the current scenario, there are listed items. So the tax tribunal defense, the labor has a different rate, and there are other things. I don't remember if there was called out anything specific, but those would be outside of retainer, billed at an hourly rate called out for in the contract. And the reason that the personnel and employment would be pulled out is, in my experience over the 3 years, because very few of your employees are outside of the union context, those tend to involve specialized personnel, employment, and then you tip over into the labor to be able to resolve those issues, which really is, to me, it's different than the general city attorney work. And it's a little bit specialized, and that's why it would be pulled out. And that's the idea behind pulling out what's not retainer. But those are specialized types of areas of legal practice that are just outside the retainer general city work.
Okay. I would favor entertaining one of the three. My main concern is hours used. That's all. And I think that's an internal issue more than your issue. Or, I believe that we should pay you the going rate for city attorneys. I mean, I don't have a problem with paying you the going rate. I have a problem with how you're used within our city. And that really has nothing to do with you, and that's just something that we need to work out amongst ourselves and see that you're used for what is necessary and that our other personnel handles their jobs and takes some of that fee away.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, if I could just, and I fully understand that. I would be happy to explore those options. The only concern from my side is, and I've actually had other clients that have said, you may not contact the attorney without authorization from whether it's the supervisor or the city manager. And the concern there is if you leave the attorney out of so much, the catch-up game, or, you know, you're only getting part of the picture because you're not putting the entire context. And that's the only concern I would have, is
Yeah,
that
and I'm not looking to make you take your toys and go home.
to
but I
provide good
just-
legal advice, I have
Yeah.
to know what's going on. And
I agree,
that's-
there has to be a compromise, and there has to be an internal accountability for people internally doing their jobs too.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity to make progress on that.
Okay, let's make progress.
Yep. Ted?
Mike.
I'm favoring, look, Tim, I'm happy with your services. I mean, I've never questioned the quality of your work. I'm favoring the hybrid, but I think there's some wiggle room in those numbers, both on the monthly number of hours under the retainer agreement, plus maybe your fee going forward over the next 3 years. So I would favor the hybrid. And I think it would probably be in our best interest if maybe we did designate a couple council members or something to try to work out the numbers so that we have a unified, you know, if they bring it back to council saying this is what we could work out and both sides are, well, at least your side's acceptable with the numbers that we work out, then maybe we can present it again to the council before the, you know, at our next meeting or,
Well,
yeah.
exactly. I think in the context of the timing, that would be helpful for me in a negotiation to know that who I'm speaking with would at least want to not sell, but advocate for a particular
Right,
position
right.
to council who is not fully informed and participating in the full conversation, but willing to trust or at least listen to whoever's taking a position. We think you ought to consider this.
And be able to pass the context of the discussions back and forth too. I'd also like to see both you and Lynn get together and see if you could come up with some ideas on how we can shed some of your hours being spent on things that we might be able to do internally. I think that would go a long ways towards, you know, shaving some costs, so.
There'll be a cost in itself.
Joe?
Yeah, and that was really my point, was I think we can look and make a better agreement, to just look where we can, sorry? You have something to add? Okay. Where maybe we can make a better agreement, you know, use resources a little more smart. And one suggestion I would have and request is, since if we are moving to a new fee structure that we're not accustomed to, we don't know how many hours are going to be used or what the final total is going to be for the year. I would prefer to go, and this is no knock on your firm, it would just be to understand what our fee structure is to do a 1-year contract as opposed to a 3-year. I think if you lock yourself in for 3 years without knowing what the fees are ultimately going to be, then that's going to set us up for failure. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just on that point, the contract was always terminable, could be terminated on fairly short notice.
Either party could have terminated, so. I have to say, though, I have a feeling it'd be pretty difficult to find somebody that's going to be willing to perform what we need for the amount that you sound like you're fishing for, so. Well, at least we got a little start there, so that's good.
Do we want to designate who wants
That's
to-
what I was gonna ask, Jude. Is there some people that wanna get involved in this?
I do not. Just because of.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I don't mind as well.
What?
You wanna be a third?
Yeah. Oh, great.
Does that sound all right?
You want to?
We meet during the day?
We can't, we can only have 3. So, no, if you. It's fine, because we have a majority there, that could be an issue.
Well,
Okay, you want to meet tomorrow?
Yeah, I was going to say, could we work it out where it's during the weekends or after work, if possible?
Free Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning?
7 o'clock?
Oh,
Well, good, Joe has a daytime
what is that,
job.
before your tea time or something?
No, I go up tomorrow. I'm free tomorrow.
I mean, you have to be considerate that Joe has a 9-to-5 job, or I don't know what hours.
Yeah,
he works.
I'm certainly can,
Wanted to do 7 AM.
I would not be opposed to that at all.
Well, we can talk amongst
Yeah, we
ourselves
can
and
figure- yeah,
figure out some
exactly.
kind of a schedule that
Okay.
gets something rolling here.
Do we need to vote on anything like that? Is it obviously an ad hoc committee kind of
No.
thing, and that's that?
I
That's
think
just
you're
an ad
fine.
hoc committee, so you don't need
Yeah.
to.
I think
Okay.
we understand.
All right. And we certainly would like to have it done before the next meeting, and hopefully in time so that Tim can have the feedback and go from there ahead of time. Doesn't need to hear it 2 weeks from now.
Thank you.
Okay, on to number 2 out of the 3 items in new business is consider allowing city staff to pursue options related to seeking MECD cost-sharing opportunities related to crowdfunding initiatives for the development of additional playing fields and nature trail systems at Volunteer Park.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. May I interrupt you? As a point of order, I think we should postpone this to our next meeting, to a date certain, the city attorney retainer agreement. May I propose that we move that we postpone this until our next meeting?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion, or where we're coming from on that?
June 22nd?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You know where we're coming from?
We would have done it
I
anyway, but
understand.
yeah, this is official.
Well, that's what I started to say.
explain.
Should we be doing something?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Now we can move on to and send it to our city manager, Lynn Ladner.
As you know, we had a group of individuals that came to the city with a master plan for Volunteer Park. And I have been doing some research trying to find ways that we can help them find funding for this, and that includes finding grant funding. The MEDC, which is Michigan Economic Development Council, has worked with a site based out here of Detroit called Patronicity, and it is a crowdfunding site. This site allows individuals to make donations. Most people are familiar with crowdfunding in that they use them for a lot of startup, small businesses, things like that. But what this site is it's strictly for governmental and nonprofit organizations within the state of Michigan. There are tax credits included that you can do, and it links with MEDC, and if you tie your program with this site, there is matching funds from the MEDC up to possibly $100,000 for it. What caught my eye on this site was the city of Sparta over on the west side of Michigan is doing a similar athletic park crowdfunding project with $100,000 potential in MEDC funding to build additional playing fields for soccer, baseball, lacrosse, everything like that outside of their community. What I would like is the council's permission to have our community development director and our public works department, who does our nature trails and our walking paths, work with this volunteer committee that already exists to put together a project that we can work on and develop, get outside funding, outside volunteers. There's corporate fundings, different options to where people can donate at certain levels for, like what Sparta's done, at a certain level you can get your name on a tree or a bench or different things like that. It allows corporations, again, to get the tax write-offs because it's a tax write-off, and you can partner and do the grant funding with the MEDC and raise funds. I don't know if our project is quite as
Grand scale.
grand
Yeah.
scale as Sparta's. Theirs is a $2.1 million project, but I think it would be a great way to begin, at least, getting funding for those additional fields that we need at Volunteer Park. And so I would like the permission of the council to get our city staff working on this and the grant proposals and the local community groups towards developing Volunteer Park.
I got a couple of questions.
Okay, we got a couple ahead of you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead.
That was awful quick.
Thank you. No, seriously, I'm so happy at least we're trying to come up with ways to fund, improvements on city-owned land that we've designated as a park. And if this is a way to get at least a jump start to see if we can raise some money to develop, because I know these organizations are just dying for playing fields. So, I mean, that's the whole purpose of why we purchased Volunteer Park. And if this is a way we could at least start raising some money for that endeavor, I think it's a great idea. So I'm all behind it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll forgo my, would you go ahead, Glenn? I'll go
Okay.
after you.
First off, though, one-to-one match is up to 100K. Is it direct up until 100K, or is that the magic number, that they'll match 100,000, but you have to get 100?
It's a one-to-one match up to 100K.
Yes, okay.
So
Anything shy of that would be matched,
Right.
okay. And secondly, I don't think we have an approved master plan for parks.
we don't have an approved master
Well,
plan
that's
for parks.
an
We ha-
obstacle.
What we have is a plan that's been presented. That's why I'm
I know,
asking.
but from an outside group, I'm not tracking why we would
Well,
be putting so much weight behind their plan.
I'm not putting away, I'm asking if we can work with that group, with our Parks and Rec committee, as well as the city staff to develop this as a joint project. This isn't something that's going to develop overnight. We're not going to use that specific plan because I think there's some modifications that need to be done. You and I had a conversation about the fact that there's a very large-scale stadium in there that may or may not really need to be at Volunteer Park because how many large-scale tournaments are going in?
Do you know what the holdup for moving forward with getting an official master plan is?
I don't.
I mean, this has been discussed for
I can talk to the
half a
rec-
year, easy.
I can talk to the Parks and Rec Committee. I do know in a lot of communities, they don't formally adopt a master plan because once you formally adopt a master plan, that is what you are set with and you can't
Well,
make
we
any
need one every
changes.
5 years, though, irrespective of anything else. So why not go ahead and move forward with the one we want?
I will get with the Parks and Rec Committee and see what they've got.
Okay.
But I definitely think this is something that we need to move forward with, at least getting some fields out there developed in the space that's not developed, as well as the nature fields. The Parks and Wildlife Department have grants that we can go after for the nature trails, which is part, I know, of that original plan. So we can do MEDC grants, we can tie into additional grants from potentially the Parks and Wildlife Department and make this a bigger project with multiple grants and additional funding from the general public.
Could I ask that you look into MEDC to find out whether or not we could use this plan as a conceptual and to the intent of what we want to do, that it won't end up goofing up our funding down the road when we adopt a real plan?
Yes.
I would hate to end up making all that effort and then say that or find out we don't qualify because we're actually going to pursue a different plan than what we had proposed. Terrific, though. I like the idea of this.
Okay, Aaron?
Did Parks and Rec know this was on the agenda today?
No, they didn't. This is something that I just found at the end of the week last week, and so I wanted to bring it to you as soon as possible so that we could get Kristen working on it and get the Parks and Rec Department working on it as soon as I got your approval.
I think I'm for it, but I think my lack of approval right now lies with, I think Parks and Rec should have a say or a discussion on if they want to work with the other groups too,
Okay.
before it just gets voted on by us like, yeah, you're working with them. They might be like, no, we don't want to work with them, or we've already done some of this and we want this direction. I think it should just be a discussion. I'm not saying that it's a yes or no thing. I have nothing bad about this group. I just think it should be a discussion. I think they should know.
They did have informal discussions when they brought that proposal here.
Right.
You know, I mean,
But
they already
an
had
informal
buy-in.
discussion and working
No,
with
you're
people
right.
are two
I mean, it'd
totally
be-
different things.
Absolutely.
So that's where I would vote no if it was motioned as it is today,
Okay.
just because I think again, it could be postponed till the next meeting.
Yes.
I just want them to be in on it from the get-go.
Definitely.
Well, I think what she's trying too is she's just recently come across this, and she would like to expedite this. It's a chance to get in on some funds while they're still there, so.
Well, yeah.
Mike?
No, go ahead, Harvey, you got it.
Okay, Harvey?
Okay, Aaron, would you agree with the suggested motion if it included local groups and Parks and Recreation and MEDC? Would
Yeah.
that meet your approval?
It would meet my approval more.
Okay. That's my question, thank you.
It would, like I said, I just want them to know about the
I think
local
that makes
groups.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
That does,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
As long as they don't think that we're pushing for a stadium right away. We know that's not really
No,
a
that's-
feasible project.
No, and Councilman Kivel and I had talked about that. The city of Rockford on the west side has built a very large sports complex with stadiums and everything like that. It's within probably 20 minutes of this complex that's going in Sparta. I would be very interested to see what that's going to do to some of their projected operational costs and things like that. So I think that's why we definitely need to work with the local groups so that we have an idea of the impact of if we put this in here and then say New Hudson, the Lyon Township puts one in theirs, what's it going to impact on what we do in Volunteer Park?
It'll either turn into a sports mecca, or one of them will turn into Auto World, or whatever that thing was in Flint.
The Tigers will
It
come play.
lasted for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, Harvey?
All right, I'll make the motion then that we authorize the city staff to work with the Parks and Recreation Commission, with local groups and the MEDC to develop a collaborative plan for leveraging and obtaining funding for the continued development of Volunteer Park.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that? That covered all the bases. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Trying to add some
Start having
bases
some
too.
fun.
We're trying to add some bases too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's just, makes sense to do. We're here to make sense.
Yeah. Review and consider new policy documents as drawn up for the city of South Lyon as applies to statutory requirements for updating the city's FOIA policies, procedures, and cost recovery fee structure.
Now, as you know, the state has changed the Freedom of Information Act laws that go into effect July 1. You have draft documents in front of you. Some of them have blanks because we are still in the process of updating them, filling in website information as we go along. We had a citywide training last week with Carlito Young, who is doing all the training for the MMRMA. And part of all of these forms these are all policies, forms, and procedures that we have to have in place by July 1. The most important is the fee itemization form, and we are still identifying all of those costs, identifying exactly what the cost is per page for a copy, because you can no longer just use a standardized cost. The cost per page can no longer be more than 10 cents, but if you have, as we do in many cases, leased copiers, we have to use what the actual leased copier cost is per page for making a copy. If we use, somebody comes in and asks for a document in an electronic medium, we have to provide it to them in an electronic medium, but we're going to have to provide them the electronic medium. So we're going to have to find out costs for bulk CDs, DVDs, and flash drives. The reason for
Really?
that.
We incur that cost?
We can charge that cost back
Okay.
to them.
Okay.
But for a computer security standpoint, we don't want them to bring in electronic mediums that could
Flash
have
drive or something.
um,
All right.
malicious information on them that would then infect our computer systems.
Yeah, that makes
So we
sense.
have to figure out what that cost is, have them in-house, and then that is a cost that we can charge back to them.
Yeah, a disc wouldn't be very expensive.
Hey, Harvey?
Thank you. There's a lot of blank lines here. Will those blanks be filled in by our next meeting, which is before July 1st?
We do hope to have them all filled in by the next meeting, yes. But the idea was to get all of this information in front of you so that you understand all of the changes and what it represents, because it is a significant amount of changes to what FOIA is doing as of July 1.
FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, just for those that aren't sure what we're talking about.
Can I follow up
Yep.
with, I have a related question, and it kind of relates to what we were talking about under item 1. This is a considerable amount of work, Tim. Would this fall under the retainer, or would this be extra from the retainer?
I'd like it to be a special project, but I had not approached Lynn about that yet. We were
Okay.
more concerned about meeting the deadline and making sure that you had the policies in place. Carlito Young and Chris Johnson and my firm have been very instrumental in dealing with all of our municipal clients in dealing with this issue across the state, and particularly in southeast Michigan. So,
Thank you. I just wanted that for my own background information, and I thank you.
I'll be at the meeting.
I had one question with, there's language in here speaking to the idea that we're obligated to tell them that they have, our website is a huge resource of information, and that we are obligated to suggest they go there first. Isn't that correct?
Yes, if the information that they request is available online somewhere, we are obligated to direct them there first, because that is a free resource. If they do not want to access it via the web, then we do have the ability to charge them for the cost of accessing it, printing it, and the time that it takes.
Okay, well, part of what I was leading into was with that very premise, I'd like to see a checkbox and a signature line on here that they were offered that item and they chose not to do it, so that they have to sign off that they're going to pay because they wouldn't avail themselves of our website.
I believe there's a letter that has to be sent to them.
I really like checklists.
Well, there's a letter that has to be sent to them that they have to sign that requires them to state that they want it in a paper format.
Okay.
And the state also does now allow that if they request it in a paper format, we gather all the documents and collect it all together. If they do not come in and pick it up, the next time they come in to make a FOIA request, they cannot make that FOIA request until they have paid for the previous one and paid the estimate of the cost of the new FOIA request.
Boy, I love the idea of transparency, but boy, this is really nightmarish.
Well, the idea is hopefully to get as much information out on the web so that people can look at it electronically and make it available to them that way.
Yeah. Well, it's not like we get to say, yeah, we approve this. It is what it is. So,
So this is just an informational
Yeah.
item today, right?
Right.
Not an action item?
Right, this is just to review and look at, next
Mayor.
time would be action items.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Tim?
if I could just draw council's attention to one point. Carlito Young and other attorneys in my office dealt with this issue. The fees can be appealed to, and the statute uses this term, head of the body or governmental body. And your current policy makes any appeal of a denial of a request appealable to the city manager. We've included an appeal of fees, which would be a separate basis for appeal to go to your city manager. There is some discussion in my office about what head of body really means. Is it council, mayor, city manager, depending on the form of government? Given your past practice, we included the city manager as the person that an appeal of either a denial or a fee would go to. I just wanted to make sure that
I mean, before circuit court.
they do not have to appeal a denial before going to circuit court. They must appeal a fee before going to circuit court on a fee issue.
That brings a question that I have in mind then. Who makes the initial decision that would be appealed? A
The
clerk?
FOIA coordinator, which is our city clerk.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with it going to the city manager.
Yeah.
Want to deal with FOIA requests in front of council. Yeah.
Alrighty. With that, move on to the manager's report.
It's been a pretty quiet week. I just had a couple of things I wanted to remind people of. This week is our first movie in the park. It is the Lego Movie, and it is showing Saturday. And we also have our second concert in the park. It is the Moxie
Strings.
Strings. I couldn't read my handwriting. And that is Friday night. We did have a decent turnout last Friday. Bob said we had about 80 people despite the kind of off weather, and hopefully we will continue to have another good turnout this weekend. We always have the farmers market on Saturday mornings, and we've been having good turnouts for that. So keep up and make sure you get out in the community. We have some great things going on.
Okay. Well, Bev, I know you've been gone a while, and we were glad to see you back, and I don't know if you've had any thoughts or anything you wanted to say.
I would like to do some thank yous, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank all the paramedics who responded to my home when I called 911. I am proud to have the first responders in my community, and I thank each and every one of you for the great effort you made to try and save my husband. I saw how hard you all worked, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I would also like to thank my fellow council members for being patient with me and giving me the time to adjust to my new life, and for all your cards and prayers and phone calls. They have helped me through a very difficult time, and they continue to be a source of support for me today. So thank you all.
Okay, Mike.
Bev, glad to see you back, seriously.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been asked by representatives of Green Oak Township and Lyon Township to see if there's support from this council for the possible development of a community center at McCaddy Park. So I'd like to see that on the agenda for our next meeting, because obviously our next step would be to go forward is to see if the city council is in support of McCaddy Park. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Harvey?
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the chicken issue in our community. This is not the first time this issue has come before this council, even in my tenure. And we pretty firmly believe that it should be more rural. The fact that we're neighbors, I live on Vassar as well, and I know the size of our lots, and I've had at least 2 neighbors already talk to me in opposition to chickens in the community and on farm. So I want you to be aware that there's probably as much opposition as there may be people in favor of it, and we'll take it under advisement from there. But thank you for bringing it to us. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was the one that brought it up last time I was over here. Personally, I'm I see remedies to be able to allow this type of activity. If you can get buy-off on neighbors and things like that with the same courtesies that, you know, if somebody's going for a variance on the size of their deck, you know, they have to ask their neighbors if they have any opposition to that. So I'm not seeing an awful lot of sympathy towards the idea of softening their position. But I did want to ask, you had mentioned about waste in that, and so is there a typical volume of waste per chicken that's generated on a weekly basis? I honestly don't know. Oh, okay, so you're a newbie too? Okay. All right, yeah. Well, I wish you luck with that, but I'm not seeing a real groundswell of support, so. You know what, I'm just gonna let it go. Okay, I'm done, thanks.
You chickening out?
Yeah, there's some other stuff around town, but I'm,
Okay. Aaron?
I tried to put a chicken discussion on the agenda once, and it got taken off, and I thought only one person had to put something on the agenda, and I didn't understand how one person could take it off. But I'd like that on our agenda for discussion.
Joe has already sent an email asking for that for the next agenda.
I didn't see that email.
It was to our city email accounts, the new ones.
Oh, I don't know how to work that yet. Okay, well, I'm going to second Joe's being on the, even though it doesn't need a second to be on the agenda. It's the farm to table issue, and it's more than just chickens in your backyard. There's a whole concept to it, and if done properly, it can be compatible. And I would support a discussion. Oh, and I have something else. It seems that we're getting more and more food trucks in our neighborhood these days, and I like that. I mean, I like to see the food trucks around, but I don't know what the regulations on the, I mean, I obviously know there has to be health department issues with them, but as far as cities, maybe this is like a planner question or something, as far as cities having the food trucks in their cities, is this something that we can permit for? Or I mean, what do other cities do who have?
Some cities have regulations on hours, locations, different things like that. I can check with Carmine and see.
I'd like to know more about it.
Okay.
Because I think that we should be fair to the businesses that pay taxes here. I mean, I'm not saying some of these food trucks, I mean, one in particular I love, but I mean, I'm not saying that we should be considerate to our business owners who have a Mason standing building and pay taxes and everything, of these people just coming in and kind of taking the show for the night. And I just don't know how other cities deal with it, and I'd like a little investigation in it, please.
Okay.
Joe?
I have a few items, and first, just want to say welcome back, Bev. It's nice to have you back. Also, to Bob, very nice concert in the park. So there's a nice salsa band, so I encourage everybody to attend. They're really nice, and kids are dancing and everything, so good job. Also, just wanted to mention that, for the record, tonight is a closed session. Again, I've made some comments last time we've had a closed session that I think we should be having more open sessions. So we are having an evaluation, and in the past we have had evaluations in open sessions. So I just wanted to note that for the record, that I would have preferred it to be an open session tonight, but that's not up to me. Also, just regarding the chicken ordinance, the last time that it was presented to us, we did not have nearly, or I'd say 1/10 or 1% of the information we gathered today. So it was very informative because we didn't have that much information presented to us before. So, you know, it really is an issue of, as Aaron mentioned, it's more than just having chickens. It's about having food and having, providing for your family and having whole food and organic food. There's a reason why it's taking off, and so many communities are doing it. And I know there are some concerns, but just as everybody knows, we do have, I would imagine everybody knows, we have an ordinance officer who does enforce our ordinances, and he's really good. So if there was any violation in ordinance, if this was to move forward, those would be addressed. So all I'm saying is I think it's worth a discussion, and that's why I put it on the agenda for next meeting, asked it. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion. Thank you.
Didn't know you did that, sorry.
That's okay.
I have to learn how to use my new city email.
Which brings me to my city email. Right now, I don't have any intentions of using it. I'm still going to use my personal one. It's been on the webpage since '09, and I don't have any problem responding to anybody. I think anybody that's ever inquired with me anything, I've responded immediately. And also my personal cell phone number is on the webpage. You don't have to call City Hall between 9 and 5 to catch me. I am catchable if I'm awake. And again, with my cell phone number. And so also, last meeting I discussed, I asked if the 7 Porta-Johns was enough for 1,700 people. And I didn't hear any yay or nay or research done or anything, so I did a little of my own. Generally speaking, that sounds like an 8-hour party. Am I right or wrong?
Actually noon to midnight with the band stopping at 10.
So it's a 12-hour party.
Yes.
The general rule of thumb is for 8 hours for 2,000 people, and it's 1,700 for this. So you adjust a little bit, they're talking 20 Porta-Johns for an 8-hour period. And we're talking a 12-hour period. I'm not sure that they have enough there, and especially since beer is being served. There's going to be more than a few barrels out in the Porta-Johns.
They have restrooms indoors too. I wonder if they're counting those.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in addition.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they've got enough. And I'm also concerned how the overflow is not going to go into Alexander's parking lot with people standing around to hear the bands. And people handing cups of beer across the fence. I just don't know how that's going to be enforced. I want them to have a good party, but I just find the logistics to be very difficult to pull off such a huge party like this.
We'll know a year from now.
Yeah.
Whether we can approve it again.
Yeah, either that or in mid-August. Also, I'm certainly willing to listen to more discussion on the chickens, but if it becomes an unsatisfactory proposition on the ones promoting it, I can suggest one other option would be you would have to have, you could try to put it as a proposal for the elections. They're taking place in November. I'm not sure the deadline on it. I've got to believe it's sometime in August. The city clerk was going to check on it. But you would need 2,158 valid signatures from the city to put that proposal in front of the city if it were to reach that point. It may not. We don't know. But I'm just saying, I'm just giving you another option as well. And that's a difficult chore. 200 was difficult for you in a span of a few days, I know. But, and again, your votes from California don't count. What?
Sorry. They would have to be city residents.
Yes, they'd have to be in the city. Because there's approximately, how many, 6,500?
8632.
Oh my God, we are growing. So it's approximately 25% of the registered voters have to sign that they, not that there's going to be that many that would vote.
Registered voters?
Mm-hmm.
They have to be registered voters.
You must have been growing. I've seen Pontiac Trail at 5 o'clock. It's terrible.
I live off Pontiac Trail. Tell me about it.
Just a quick comment. Government by referendum is horrible.
Yeah. Okay, and that was my list. So I thank you folks for having attended. We are now going to be going to a closed session, so we'll have to close this portion of the meeting and go to a closed session, of which this televised part was approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes long.
You're going to need a vote.
We will,
Need a motion and a
You need a
vote.
motion and a
somebody's got
vote.
to make it. I can't.
I move we enter closed session, what is it, 8H?
8A.
8A?
A.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Of the Open Meetings Act. Okay, second.
Yeah.
All for discussion? Okay, on favor, roll call?
Kukowski? Yes. Dibble?
Yes.
Ridley? Yes. Wallace?
Yes.
Widow?
Yes.
Kramer?
Yep.
Dixon?
Yes.